Hello and welcome to the podcast for episode 207, Faith. I'm Ronald D. Moore, executive producer and developer of the Outlander television series, and I'm joined today by the lovely and talented Tony Graffia. Hello, Tony.
Hi.
Well, this is one of the standout episodes of this season. We kind of knew this from the outset, in the scheme of things when we were breaking the book and down into component hours and what was going to happen when. And this one always stood out as like that's going to be a great episode. And I think you had your sights on this one early.
Oh yeah, I loved this part of the book. Much like last year when I wanted the witch trial episode as my favorite part, I knew when I read this that I had to write this episode. So I'm hoping hoping we can make it through today without tears. To help us, we have our Scotch of the day, which is a special, it's Carlisle Cask Strength, just to get us through it, which was introduced to me by David Frew, our post-production supervisor in Scotland. Cheers.
Cheers. Cask Strength, huh?
Yeah, we're going to need it.
Oh, man. Wow.
It's
yeah, that is right out of the cask, boys and
girls.
Oh,
yeah. You can taste the years on this one.
All right, well, this will be a good podcast.
Ooh.
This little opening beat here in the Boston Library was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tone, because I often think back and remember these things incorrectly. But as I recall, this was something that came to me at home as an idea that I just wanted somewhere in the season. Like I had an idea about platforming where we're going with Claire. We're starting with her in the 1940s, and then we go further with her later on at some point. And I thought, well, there's a midpoint scene somewhere in the series where we can just touch base with Claire and Brianna in Boston in the 1950s. Right. And then I think I just came in the room and we just talked about where it would go. Right.
Yeah, this scene was your idea. In the book, the chapter after Claire loses the baby is like she wakes up, I think, like 5 days after it's already happened, and she already knows about it. But we didn't want to miss that, So I had originally proposed starting with the hospital scene, which you'll see in a minute right here, and I pitched it as an 18th century version of ER to see what they would do to try to save her and her baby. But you had the idea that we see, Claire with young Brianna first in that opening scene, which I think is going to really freak people out because they're not going to be sure if it's real or if it's her. She's imagining it or what. But we wanted to show a little of what Claire's losing, because when you see her with that little girl, it makes the rest of the episode very, very poignant.
There was we spent a lot of time in post trying to figure out how we were going to do the bird and how literal the bird would be in the room. Did Claire literally see the bird flying inside the hospital? Was it an animated kind of thing that came out of the book? We went through many iterations before we kind of settled on a much simpler, cleaner, just it's a bird flying in the sky that kind of fades into the ceiling and then down to Claire.
Yeah, I used the blue heron, which is not in the book, and it was actually trying to come up with something for the Master Raymond scene, which in the book, it's beautiful in the book about how blue is the color and his hands glow blue and the room is blue. We knew we couldn't really show that on camera without a lot of special effects, so I'd come up with the heron as a way to show that this is what she imagines as she's escaping the horror of what's happening to her there when she's losing her baby, that she just fixates on the memory of this heron flying because blue is sort of carrying her away and carrying her pain away.
I was thinking, now this beat with the Virgin Mary and the statue, that was in your first draft, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the book they mention when Master Raymond says your cloak is blue like my own, like the Virgin Mary like my own. I grabbed onto that and wanted to use the Virgin Mary as somewhat of a motif here as well, and I knew I wanted the Virgin Mary to be the first thing she saw when she opened her eyes, looming over her. And Gina Cromwell made a great Virgin for me. I told her exactly what we wanted it to look like.
Oh, I forgot we made that.
We made it so that we could break it. We had to make several of them. And I usually like to write a lot of dialogue, but not here because I wanted Claire to wake up and just see her face as she felt her belly and realized that the baby was not inside her anymore.
I love this whole performance. I mean, Kat's amazing through this whole show, but this scene in particular, the look in her eyes as she's hunting for her baby and doesn't want to believe the truth, it's just, she's just gone. She's just not there anymore.
Yeah, I struggled with how in the book they don't have the moment where she learns this, and I thought, we can't skip over that. I want to see Mother Hildegard tell her this. And I struggled with how would she say it to her. And I think many years of Catholic school led me to she has joined the angels as being the kindest way that the nun could tell her that her baby had passed away. And Claire just cannot, it doesn't compute in her brain, and
yeah, she just can't get there.
No, and she starts screaming, and even screaming in French, because the nuns they don't even understand English, most of the nuns there. And I was not here for the shooting of this episode. Matthew Roberts supervised the shooting. In fact, he directed the opening scene with Claire and little Brianna.
That's right.
And he did a great job. I trust him with my scripts. He's wonderful, and I was like, I'm glad you're there, Matt, in a way, and I'm not, because I don't think I couldn't have even, it would have been hard to be there and watch this in person, because it's just so heartbreaking. And Kat's so good.
And when Kat goes to those places, she really goes to those places.
Oh, yeah. This was your idea as well. You asked for a scene where she's given last rites, just to make it wasn't in the first draft, but we added it because we wanted to show just how much danger she was in, and that her life was really in danger. And even though the fans know we're not going to kill Claire, she's our heroine, I think that some people that don't know the books are going to be really shocked that the baby died, because I think in any other network show they would save that baby.
And I think there was an assumption for people that didn't know the books. The beginning of the season, she shows up pregnant, the 1940s. And I think they're assuming that there's that it's the same baby.
Right.
And probably in the last week or so, they're starting to go, but she looks so much more pregnant than she was
they
in the 40s.
They think we made a mistake.
Yeah, they're like, is this just bad? Is this
I've seen,
error?
yeah, several reviewers are like, well, they really screwed this up.
Really?
Obviously, she's not as pregnant when she comes back. And I'm like, just wait. I was actually glad that they wrote that, because it kind of covered the surprise that we had coming here. I had a lot of voiceover in this scene, which we all cut it all out in editing. And in fact, most of the show, there was a lot of voiceover we cut, just because you don't need it. When you see Kat's face, it just plays on her face.
I think overall we've been pulling back bit by bit from the voiceover, just because the story does carry itself at this point. I don't want to lose it completely, because it maintains a tie to sort of the literary roots of the show.
Right. Exactly. We only had a lot of it here because most of the scenes, there's a lot of scenes where she's alone and she's not talking to someone and thinking something else. She's literally alone, and we don't know what she's thinking.
Yeah.
But you look at this woman's face and you know what she's thinking.
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
I love Bhutan. This was one of my favorite things from the book, where Mother Hildegard orders Bhutan to lie with Claire and watch over her. I love that.
This was a tricky scene to translate from the book. It's a really great piece of writing in the book. You read this section of Master Raymond coming in and healing her, and it's pretty compelling, but it's very internal. It's all completely told from Claire's from her delirious mind's point of view, and it's a lot of metaphor and crystals and the crystal spheres that are being cracked in his healing hands, and
it's magic. It's a mixture of medicine and magic.
And it was hard to literalize that, in the scene. But I think eventually it got to the place where I think it all does come through.
And there's the heron again, and he's urging her, blue is the color of healing. Imagine this and let your pain, let it take your pain away.
Blue is the color of healing. The wings we carry your pain away if you let them.
A white hotness burned deep in my bones. I knew what it was. Puerperal fever.
Yeah, like all of this, there was no way to convey any of this without the voiceover. You had to have Claire's voice talking you through some of this.
We wanted you to see both the magic and the real medicine, which is that she has an infection that would have killed her, and he literally saves her life because he's a healer himself and has this knowledge of how to heal her that the nuns don't, that no one in the hospital does. And they have a very special connection here.
And even Claire doesn't really understand his abilities or what he's doing.
No, and he's taken a great risk to come here because she's just warned him in the last episode that he should leave town, and he should be gone by now. But, he told her, you shouldn't have come to the apothecary to warn me, and she said, this is what we do for our friends. And then here it's a nice callback because to what Matt wrote in that episode is that, she tells him, you shouldn't have come here, and he says, this is what we do for our friends.
I don't know what he did or how he did it, but he healed me. What's more, he saved my life.
Madame, que se passe-t-il?
I love the sets too, and this
It's a great
hospital is
location.
the bed that she's in, and just the old hospital, which we shot in a church, the Glasgow Cathedral.
I must go now. Be well, Madonna.
No, Madonna. I have no choice.
I didn't go to you, Madonna, because you were mischarged, my dear. Everyone has a collar about them. All around them like a cloud. Yours is blue, like the Virgin's cloak.
And I like when he says, we'll all see each other again.
Yeah.
He told her a few episodes ago in my other episode, you will see Frank again.
Mm-hmm.
And here he tells her, we will all see each other again. I don't really know what that means, but it sounded mystical. And
Yeah, it sounds mystical.
And he says to her, have faith. And I purposely had him say, have faith, because, of course, that's what Mother Hildegard has named the baby. The baby had to have a name and be baptized to even be buried on the church property. And
Which was
Mother
an
Hildegard
interesting thing.
lied.
I never even knew that.
Yeah, I did. That's something I found in the research, and I thought it was so cool that I put it in, because Mother Hildegard basically broke a vow. I mean, she lied to God to get that done. I mean, she's not to God. She says, keep this between you, me, and God, because she lied to get her buried there.
Has there been any word from Monsieur Fraser? He is unable to come.
At this point, we don't know where Jamie is.
Right. Because all we've seen is that Jamie was taken away by the police at the end of the last episode.
Right.
I mean, this is a significant period of time in the book, as I recall. It's weeks go by, right?
Yeah.
There's weeks of her in the hospital, and her, still unable to get past the death of the child, and holding Jamie responsible, and really being in a dark,
She's
bad
angry
place
for a long time. And she actually, in the book, also, when she leaves the hospital, she goes to Fontainebleau with Louise. And
right.
she stays there for even more weeks.
That's right.
And here we had to condense those chapters to make this work in one episode of television. And that's one of the challenges of the book, when you have all this great material, but you have to get it into, less than 60 minutes. So one of the things we did was, basically go straight from this, where she's saying she can't forgive Jamie. There's not a sea deep enough. And we had to take her home right after this to keep the story going. But I love the part about Louise trying to help her at Fontainebleau, so we found a way a unique way to use Louise later. You'll see later in the episode we did figure Louise.
Yeah,
But
I
for
thought
now-
that was a key component, because that's her one friend in this world, really. Once Jamie's gone, who is there for her? I mean, Master Raymond has done his thing, and he's out of there. But Louise is like the one friend, and it seemed right to keep Louise into this story.
Yeah, absolutely. And she helped Louise to keep her own baby.
Yeah.
Louise is pregnant, and Claire helped her during her the time she was really struggling with that dilemma about her baby in Prince Charles.
And I'm trying to remember how this was structured on the page, because we used Louise later in a flashback, obviously. But was it written as a flashback, or was it written linear?
No, it wasn't.
It was
written
always
linear.
structured.
It was
as
always
a flashback. Okay.
this episode, in the first draft, I did have much more of, Claire and the king and what happened with her and Jamie and what happened in the Star Chamber. And it just was it was flashy, but it just wasn't as deep emotionally. And I remember, you read the first draft and you liked it. You were like, yeah, it's good, but it's missing something. And I remember you really just gave me one note, which is you just said to me, it's all about the baby.
Yeah.
And that was really all I needed to hear. I knew that I needed to just dig deeper into that story, and I did a page 1 rewrite on it, actually, which I did in Scotland. It's the only episode I wrote in Scotland, and I think it lent a certain magic to it, because it was really the mood of the place, and staying up every night after I was there supervising episode 204, the dinner party, and I'd come home exhausted and have to stay up all night, but I'd just have my laptop looking out the window at the rainstorms, and I just got in that mood, that really, place where I could access the emotions for this, and it came out a much better script just from that one note.
This is almost my favorite scene in the episode. I mean, there's so many great scenes in this episode, but I love this scene of her returning home.
Yeah, we actually, in the script, a scene that got cut that we never got to film was Fergus comes to get her from the hospital, and he brings this bouquet of blue flowers. Again, I was keeping blue as a motif. But here you can see that he's carrying the blue flowers, and he went to get her. And just the servants, this is our anti-Downton Abbey shot. Because even though I love Downton Abbey, I've always wanted to do something where the servants line up. But here it's for a very different reason in Downton Abbey. There's no happy greetings. It's this heartbreak. And Suzette just slays me. And
Magnus.
And Magnus. And Claire's face.
Oh, and then she, bows to Magnus. And it's heartbreaking. It's just such a great scene.
Yeah. I totally believe she's a woman that's lost her baby. She basically won't let him bow to her because he saved her life. When he
saved her life.
She said at the duel, "Take me to Mother Hildegard," and he did, and he was so worried about her. And I think it's a classy moment here that she bows to him.
It's so beautiful.
Okay,
I am too.
This is making me cry.
It's an emotional moment. It really is.
Really, yeah.
It's the power of this show when it gets to these places and it really can touch you deeply, and I'm so proud of it in these moments. It's just like the whole production, the cast, the crew, the script. It's just it makes something like this work.
We had to practice those servants when they bowed because they bowed so fast, and we kept making them go slower. It's sad. You're really sad, and they finally got it, and it's really works.
This scene, in a way, was a callback to a scene that unfortunately I cut from the previous episode, where we had set up Fergus brushing her hair after the attack and the dinner party and all that, and this was sort of a reprise of that, just sort of establishing this as something that he still was sort of then doing as a bit of a routine, and a way of kind of connecting with her.
Right. He learned how to do it because he was raised in a brothel, so he knows how to take care of women, and he's a very sensitive kid, even though he's a little rascal. And here's where he sees the perfume bottle.
Nothing, milady.
But we don't know why yet that it's so upsetting to him.
Back to Prague.
We got a few other scenes in between.
I was just trying to remember. There was other pieces here.
It was a scene where it was just the two of them at the dinner table,
dinner, that's what it
and
was.
Jamie's empty chair between them, and but we didn't really need it. The hairbrushing scene said it all.
I mean, the first cut of this episode came in at an hour and a half, and I remember thinking, "Oh my God, it's an hour and a half over. How did that happen?" And it was clearly like an amazing episode.
Yeah.
And I was really afraid of, wow, what are we going to do? So I immediately called the network and said, hey, look, here's the deal. I haven't even touched this show yet, but it's an hour and a half. And they were like, what? I said, yeah. So look, can we get permission to do a 90-minute episode? Because I really don't know realistically how much I can possibly cut from this show. And they thought about it, and they said, sure, if you really think it's that great, absolutely, we'd be willing to do it, which is amazing.
That was amazing of them. Their faith
their faith
in us.
In the show. But then, truth was, when you really got into then sculpting the show itself, a lot of things just kind of came out because, you sort of felt like you were hitting the same beat over
Yeah,
and over.
these parts
And
were more powerful.
A lot of emotional beats play stronger if they're a little shorter and you're not quite milking it. There's that
Right.
point where you're asking the audience to cry too long.
Right,
You know,
right.
and this one got even stronger as it came down, and at the end, it's not nearly it's still over an
Right.
hour, but it's not nearly at the length we once thought it would be.
Right. So we saw the apostle spoons in the earlier scene, which will figure later in the episode. The christening gift from Jamie.
Where did you come across that?
Our historian actually, you said, I want Jamie to give her a christening gift when I was supervising episode 5,
Oh.
Untimely Resurrection. And so I asked the historian, Danny Barrow, find what would be a traditional Gaelic christening gift. And she came up with like a bonnet or a 18th century rattle, a few items. But I wanted, selfishly, I knew that I was in the middle of writing this, and I wanted to use something that they could leave on the grave later. And when I saw those spoons, the apostle spoons, I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. Because I always thought, you can't leave a christening gift on a grave. Because what about your other kids if you have some later? And the spoons kind of solved that because there were 12 of them, and it allowed us to put a little joke in about Jamie saying we're going to have 12 kids, and then they can leave a spoon. So I chose them way back in episode 5 in order to make it work in this episode.
That's great. You always seem to find these really interesting props, from the watch
Yeah.
onward. You always find like the object that's really fascinating.
Yeah. It's something unique to the period.
This was all tricky stuff to shoot. The attack of Jack Randall on Fergus. How much you could show, how much you want to show. This is clearly dicey material. We're shooting with an actual child. And there was a lot of sensitivity and a lot of discussion beforehand about how far we would go, how far we wouldn't go. Lots of conversations, obviously, with his mother, who was very comfortable with it, and everyone just sort of, said, okay, let's be clear on what we're doing, what the intent is. We just want to convey to the audience what happened, and we don't need to really show more than that. It just has to be it's horrifying enough, and you don't need too much to really get there.
I feel bad because in the last episode, when we cut away, after you see the red jacket hanging, a lot of reviewers were like, oh, that was cool of them to not show the whole thing. They just cut away and left it to our imaginations. And, I was like, uh-oh. When they see this, they may not be too happy with
Still,
this. But,
it's not, you're going to,
it's not,
you're scared right here, like, oh my God, what are they going to show me?
yeah,
But that's
it's
as far
not
as we go.
gratuitous. It's very important that we see, why Jamie broke his promise. I mean, this was a huge promise that was going to destroy their marriage and cost them their baby. And if we didn't see
And it
what
turns
made
Claire's
him
heart.
so mad,
It turns Claire's heart and makes her,
Fergus could not just tell her this story. The audience needed to see it, and it's sort of like Jamie's POV of oh, now we get it. Now we know why he had to break that promise and why he had to try to kill Jack Randall, because he couldn't let him go unpunished for this.
right.
Jamie loves that kid.
He hid under the dressing table. Then the fight was broken. As soon as Ingrid was taken away, I heard him challenge the Englishman for a duel.
You sick bastard! A duel! I demand a duel! No!
And then he was taken
I
away.
think this does happen in the book, but I don't think it's about the perfume bottle. I think he
Yeah, I'm
broke
trying to
in and tried to
remember.
steal money out of the bag
Is that
or
what it
something.
was?
But I think it was
he
us
definitely
that-
broke into a room.
He broke into to Randall's room. It was like, we called it the rabbit walking into the lion's den. That's how we always describe this scene.
And I think
But
he
I
might
think
have
we
seen him
made
as
it
soon
to-
as he walked in, right? Wasn't Randall just sitting there when he walked in or something?
I can't remember now, but I believe we made it the perfume bottle so that when he's telling the story to Claire, he says, this lavender, my lady, and she instantly knows, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's the same lavender he used on Jamie. And Jamie had nightmares after this, and now Claire's seen, this kid she loves have the same nightmares and essentially go through what Jamie's went through. And now she goes to Mother Hildegard to ask to see the king. And I love Mother Hildegard. She's just no BS. She's
Yeah.
like, okay, you're going to have to sleep with him.
You know that's the deal, right?
You know that's part of the
We
deal.
all know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it myself.
Yeah. Well, Well, how do you think?
Everyone in this hospital has had to sleep with a king. I mean, it's just, obviously, right?
Oh, I think maybe we should stop drinking now. But yeah, this is actually one of my favorite lines in the script, where Claire just basically says, yeah, well, if I have to lose my virtue over this or my honor, just add it to the list of things I've already lost
Yeah,
in
that's
Paris.
great.
And I added that line because I felt it really summed up what we've always talked about in the writer's room, is this season being that Paris is very toxic to this couple, and that they go there with these grand plan and these great dreams of stopping a war, and yet little by little the city just chips away at them and takes so much from them. That line for me summed it up. And she was like, what else do we have to lose? I have to go get my husband out.
This is pretty much a complete creation in CG of the exterior of Versailles, with some live-action elements combined with mats and complete computer animation.
Mm-hmm.
This is back in Prague at the big library where Jamie
right.
was playing chess.
Oh, and the gentleman of the bedchamber, the man who's leading Claire in, is actually Guillaume Lecomte, who was our French translator and on the set with us for every
right.
episode.
That's right.
We gave him this small part, and he has this one line to introduce Claire to the king, and he did a great job.
And this is the library next door to the library. There's like two big giant rooms of libraries.
You can never have too many libraries.
And you can never have too many libraries. And then those transition back to our set.
I love what she's wearing, too, and I love that she's, of course, got the crystal on that she was given by Master Raymond. And the king, I love what he's wearing.
He's so
my
great.
gosh. He looks fantastic. He's always had a little crush on Claire.
Yeah. I've always
Since
liked
he
that.
first met
He's
her.
got his high on her from day one.
He kissed her hand in
Yeah.
this garden, and he saw her at Versailles, and I think he's like, ooh la la, look who's in my chamber. I researched this as well. I wanted him to offer her something that was a delicacy, and I read that he had I can't even pronounce the French, lingerie. It's an orange grove in any case. And oranges were a delicacy for him. And chocolate was a big thing. They drank hot chocolate, which was from Spain. And so it's really a seduction. I mean, he's seducing her with these rarities that you can't get. And
I thought the oranges were just an homage to Godfather.
everything comes back to Godfather.
Everything's an homage to Godfather.
So that's cool with me. I'm Italian.
Godfather may be the most discussed movie in any writer's room. Like, I don't
Totally.
think every writer's room I've been in has
Yeah,
had
yeah.
endless discussions of Godfather in every story.
Absolutely.
My husband is rusty.
I like also coming up that he notices her rings, because I just thought,
Oh, yeah.
he would see that this woman's got 2 wedding rings on, and that intrigues him. It probably makes her think that she's more open-minded to being with him.
Yeah, like, well, if you're like...
Yeah, he's like, I admire your loyalty to your ex, because you obviously still love him. You're a woman that can handle many men.
And a woman of many diverse tastes.
Yeah.
And appetites.
Got my English husband, got my Scottish
So,
husband.
and then there's a French...
How'd you like a French?
king,
Till you've had a Frenchman, you
Yeah.
haven't had a...
Jesuit.
Yeah, we enjoyed working on this in the writer's room because it's just such a shocking... I remember, actually, this was a spoiler for me because I hadn't read ahead in the books the first season, and somebody said to me, oh, yeah, well, when Claire, F's the king in book 2, and I went, what? She does what? And I could not imagine, and I was so mad at the person. I can't believe that you did that spoiler, but don't tell me why. And when I was reading Dragonfly, I couldn't wait to find out why, because I thought, this must be a huge reason that this just couldn't happen in our universe. And then when I got there, I realized, oh, okay, this is the reason. And that's how we, can get away with something like that. Your heroine actually being with someone else, a king. But she does it for the love of her husband. So it's awesome.
I love the whole misdirect here, that you think, that they're going to that bed that we keep cutting to over and over again.
Yeah.
And then he gets up, he walks towards the bed. It's just all happening, and then it just takes this start. I remember when I read this in the book for the first time, it's one of those moments that Diana just delivers a hard left turn in the story, and you're just left like, what? Wait a minute, did I miss a chapter? How are we in this room?
Right. And Gary Steele did such an amazing job. This is one of our favorite sets of the season, the bedroom and the Star Chamber, which I think it was Gary's idea to put a secret door so that you could go straight into the Star Chamber. Well, what we call the Star Chamber. I know,
we call it the Star Chamber. It's not called
the Cabinet de Verite or something.
It just became our name for it.
Yeah. And of course, hearkening back to La Dame Blanche, apparently everyone in France has heard the rumors of Claire being the witch.
They're a gossipy bunch in France.
Yeah, they are. They drink a lot and they gossip.
They didn't need the internet in those days.
No.
They really didn't. Their social media was much faster.
Much better.
La Dame Blanche. At La Dame Blanche.
I like when he just touches her and he's like, so pale, so fine.
Why they call you La Dame Blanche?
Like, he just loves her. He's just tickled by her, and
he's so great in this role.
He's great.
He's such a perfect piece of casting.
Yeah, and we talked a lot. I know we talked a lot in the room, and you kept saying, like, what makes him do all this? What is, and we had to dig into why he would do this, and just came, we did some research on the king, and he's just so capricious, and he's just mercurial, and he loves a show, and he's the king. He's kind of bored with all the rituals, and so he invents these games and these things. That's why he has the Star Chamber. In fact, I believe, and this probably is the real king, dabbled in the black arts himself, but once in a while he had to clean up the town to sort of show the Pope and the church that he was on board with all the rules. But secretly, he dabbled himself in astrology and things, and that's why the theme of this room is kind of the stars and the astrology, and that the king himself is fascinated with this stuff.
I remember Gary Steele brought me down to the art department once. He said he wanted to show me a model for a set, and it was the model for this set. It was like a three-dimensional model that was built on a tabletop with a big dome on it, and he was so excited by this set. I remember he was really intrigued by it, and I saw it, and I was like, I didn't quite get it at first, but I would sort of went with just his enthusiasm and his passion for it, and said, yeah, let's go for it. I think he and I had a preliminary conversation about the set before that, as I recall now.
I think Matt actually was one of the people who said to leave the ceiling. At one point, we wanted to leave the ceiling open so that you could actually see the stars. But then I think we realized the scene took place during the day, so we had to put a ceiling on it, but we wanted the effect of the stars coming in.
Because I think one of the things Gary asked me at first was, what's the history of this room? Is this a room that's always been in the palace? Did it used to be something else?
Right.
Has it been turned over to this? How do you want it to feel? Because everything in the show has been very grounded in terms of, what's really Paris like? What is Versailles really like? Trying to be as close as possible to the real places. And this was a place I thought that we should go in a different direction. Like, just let's say this room was purpose-built for this. Whoever built this, Louis's grandfather or whoever, sometime in the past, built this room specifically.
The Sun King who built Versailles was Louis's grandfather, and Mother Hildegard's godfather.
It's a great set. It's moody.
Beautiful.
It was also interesting, like when you stood on the physical set and you stood in the center of the circle, the dome on top produced this strange echo effect. So we kept taking people onto the set and telling them to stand in the center, and they would look at you and go, okay, and I would say, all right, now just say something. And they'd say, what? And then they would jump, because you only heard this weird echo all around you if you stood precisely in the center of the circle. And so it was always, then everybody got into it and kept bringing friends in. Okay, now stand here. And they would say, what? Now just talk. And then they would say something, and they would all like jump, like, whoa, what a weird
must have been heartbreaking to take this set down.
Yeah, it was hard. This was a hard. This was
because it was for one scene. I mean, we
one
built this for
scene.
one scene, but it was so important to the show. It's really an epic moment in the show. It's something all the fans are waiting to see. Although we did struggle with this scene. We
this scene
argued
was
about
tough.
this in the writers' room. We had some really spirited discussions, and a lot of it was about the logic of the scene. Because when you're reading the book, you don't make those kind of logic. It doesn't trip you up because you're reading and your mind just fills in the blanks. But we did have questions which were like in the book. Master Raymond is the one who pulls the poison out of his sleeve and says, let's drink this. He comes up with the test.
Yeah.
We couldn't have him had the idea for the test because he's one of the suspects.
Yeah, it seemed odd to us dramatically. Like, well, if he says that, doesn't
Yeah.
the king go, shut the fuck up?
Yeah.
Why are
Yeah,
we're not doing
exactly.
that. What are you, crazy?
So we needed a way to make it. We kept saying it needs to be Claire. It needs to be Claire. But how? She doesn't even have sleeves to pull it out of. But then that's when we came up with the idea to do that. They had rounded up the evidence like
Yeah.
a real trial. Here's Exhibit A, Exhibit B. Here's the stuff we took from the apothecary and from Saint Germain's home. And Claire remembers when she sees this that the bitter cascara is there, and it gives her the perfect way to introduce this test.
Yeah, because she's trying to get them both
Yeah.
off. She's trying to get them.
She doesn't want either one
free.
to die, even though she's mad at the comp. She doesn't want to be responsible for this cold-blooded death, and she knows that the bitter cascara will make him sick, make them both sick.
And then there was a question, well, then how does Raymond get the poison into the cup? And then we came up with sleight
Right.
of hand, and then it was, okay, well, we better set that up. So then
That's
I think
right.
we had to shoot.
In episode 4, which I wrote, we purposefully added that he does a sleight of hand trick
Now,
with
was
the
that
sheep
done after the
knuckles.
fact? Or
No, we put it in because I was writing this
Did we pick it up later?
while I was shooting that.
Was that right? They were
I was
both,
writing this while we were
Oh.
shooting that, and I went, oh my God, we need him to know sleight of hand, and I added it to the other script at the
Okay.
last minute. And
This woman has also been known to drink poison and survive.
How do you come to this knowledge?
This is the only time that
Yeah.
Saint Germain speaks English.
Right.
Because we got into the scene, and if we didn't make this transition, the entire scene was going to be in French.
Right. We
And
knew it was a lot of
and
French.
That would work, but it kind of did feel like it was going to take you out of the drama of it with
Right.
just subtitling everything through the whole scene.
right, yeah, so it was clever to have the
Yeah, the king.
king
forced
just
it.
like, speak English to my guest,
Yeah.
you fool. And he's pissed. I mean, Saint Germain, he can't control his temper. He's very angry. Claire has to pretend that she doesn't even know very well Master Raymond, who just saved her life, as did Monsieur Ferez, who's the executioner, the king's executioner. We added him to the scene at the last minute as well, and he was at the top of the episode saving Claire, trying to save her and her baby, but saving Claire, and now he's here to kill someone. But they all have to pretend they don't know each other.
Saint Germain tried to poison me.
And here's where,
Blooded me to death.
we decided to have Saint Germain cop to the fact that he tried to poison Claire, because then she's not going to feel quite as bad, because she didn't know for sure that he tried to kill her. But
Yeah, it was tricky stuff. Trying to
very tricky
'cause
scene.
where is Claire's heart in this? What is her intention? What is
She's
she
not a
trying?
murderer.
She's
Even
not a
if she
cold-blooded
thought-
killer.
no.
So
No.
in this moment, we needed these events to
Yeah.
happen, but we just had to sort of step through it
Right.
emotionally and
But-
get clarity on where she was.
Right, and Master Raymond, he's the one that knows this king is not going to let someone out of here without dying. There's got to be an end to the show. And Claire's trying to save them both with the bitter cascara, but that's ultimately why he puts the poison in. He's like, listen, if it's not going to be me, so it's going to have to be Saint Germain. And I think maybe he even feels a little bad about it, but he knows what Claire doesn't know, which is this king is not going to be satisfied till someone's dead on the floor. And so Claire, having taken the, she took a cue from Master Raymond's playbook with the cascara, and now, she had no choice. Otherwise, someone was going to get bit by a poisonous
Yeah.
snake.
I think we started. Did we have more to do with the snakes for a while? I can't remember.
In the book, they actually do. I believe they do handle the snake.
Maybe
and,
it's in the
and-
book. I don't remember. It,
Yeah, I think they take the snakes out and handle them, but
Perhaps Yes, Your Majesty.
We didn't even have the snake in the first draft. We knew it was going to be hard to play and hard to even find a snake in
Yeah.
Scotland. They don't
Yeah.
even have snakes over there. But David Brown, he's, God bless him, we ask impossible stuff, and he always tries. He's a great producer to work with because he always really tries to get the writers what we want. If we're
Snake
like,
in Scotland? No
please,
problem.
please, we need a snake, and he's like, oh, for God's sakes. All right, I'll try to get one. And he got this snake. The snake actually, a little tidbit here, I think that little tongue
Yeah, the
thing
tongue is CG.
was added
Yeah.
because the snake he wasn't cooperating. I think he had stage fright.
He was bored.
He was bored. He was like, get on with the show. He wasn't moving, and we didn't want it to look like a fake snake because it was indeed a real snake. So we added a special effect of the snake flicking his tongue.
Yeah.
And then he made it into the main titles.
I know.
Such a handsome devil.
I know. Now he's like now he's a regular.
yeah, we have to pay
He's
him
one
a
of our
lot
main
more. I
casts.
think.
Yeah, and his price just went way up.
This potion will give you your answers, sire.
One of the things we did talk about that I don't think we ever quite sold in the series was setting up this idea of the king's interest in the occult and marrying Saint Germain to that, and trying to sort of. I remember having a lot of discussions and story points in the room about trying to lay in little subplots of that not just La Dame Blanche, but that the king and Saint Germain and Master Raymond were all sort of involved in certain occultish things and black arts along the way. We kept writing little pieces of it, and they would always fall out of scripts. And I think it's kind of there now. It's like
I know.
there's a suggestion of it.
I noticed
but
some of the
it's still
reviewers
kind
are
of-
like, again, I keep mentioning this, but it's just because people have to be patient. You know,
Yeah.
some of the reviews were saying, well, there's this little mini subplot about the dark arts. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And actually, it's going somewhere. It's going somewhere pretty big.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of show that we roll it out slowly. This is not network television. It's supposed to be that these things are feathered in. And I'm glad that they notice it. But I wish
Yeah.
they would wait till you see.
There's just so much going on, too.
It's a
like
very
you're always-
complex show. We've got a lot, and we try to get in everything we can from the books and that we want to put in, and it's complex material. Everyone does such a great job here. The king is great. Saint Germain is really great.
I know it's a compelling scene. It's a long scene.
It's a really long scene.
in one set, and there's not even a lot of movement. There's a nice little visual effects shot of the crystal changing. I remember when we started talking about the crystal, Terry said to me, "Does the crystal have to change? Is it gonna? It's gonna be a special effect, right? Right? I don't have to get a crystal that changes, do I?" I was like, "No, you may have to do one." She's like, "No, really?" I said, "I'm kidding. Of course it's gonna be CG."
You know, if we told her to find that, she probably could.
would have, yeah.
Knowing her, because she finds some amazing stuff, it wouldn't have surprised me.
Give him the cup.
Oh, and now Claire knows
She knows
it's poison, and she tries not to hand it to him. I mean, she hates this guy, and he knows it. I love this moment because they all know what's going on.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
Everyone except the king.
Yeah.
Because he still thinks it's a magic
I know.
cup. It's like,
Ugh.
I know, he's so good here.
Yeah, he's
so good. I love watching him in this moment as he has to accept his own death.
he was the nicest guy too.
He's a really
and
nice
very
guy.
handsome. We hated to kill him. Actually, I
know.
wish he could have just stayed in
Ladies
the show.
across the production really were like,
the ladies
"Is Stanley here
loved him.
today?"
Oh yeah. He actually improvised that line.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
I
no
had
kidding.
a line that was like the F word, and you know.
You can say fuck.
I know. Yeah.
He improvised. I didn't realize
He's
he
supposed
improvised
to say
that.
like "fuck you both, I'll see you in hell" or something, and he came up with something a little more colorful in
Yeah,
French.
that's pretty
And I
colorful.
was really happy with that. I'll take credit for it.
When did you find out? Did he just say it in
I
French,
saw
and
it
then
in
much
daily.
later you're like, "What does he say there?"
I saw it in dailies, and I'm like, "What's he saying?" And they're like, "I think he's saying something about sucking the cock of the devil." I'm like, "Oh, awesome!" He dies good too.
It's a good death.
what is it, die young and leave a good-looking corpse?
Yeah.
Someone said that.
That's our count.
I like that Raymond. He kind of looks like, I wish I didn't have to do that, but thank God it wasn't.
Yeah, but better him than me.
Yeah. And then the king just steps over him. Very callous, very French. I'm the king. I can do what I want.
Considérez-vous comme chose.
And then,
Dès aujourd'hui, il ne remettra
I love when Claire says about the line from the movie. I didn't know if you would go for
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I was like, is this too corny? I'm going to put it in and see if he likes it. Because you sometimes like stuff like that,
I
but
do,
sometimes
yeah.
you nix it.
I know,
But
it's-
you said, in all your notes, you had a bunch of notes, and then there was just one note that said, love the line from the movie, love the line from the Oz. So we
Yeah.
kept it in. I think it wasn't a favorite.
I got a couple of notes trying
There
to
were
cut
some
it, but I
notes
just wouldn't cut. I
about
loved it.
cutting it.
It was a
Yeah,
lovely line.
I'm glad we kept it in. I feel like that's what they are. They're out of the Wizard of Oz, her and Master Raymond, and they have this just special kind of relationship.
There's a whole Dorothy and Oz quality
Yeah.
to Claire's entire
Was it
story.
the Tin Man or the Scarecrow that she said that to? Now I'm going to show.
Scarecrow.
Okay, the Scarecrow.
Scarecrow.
See, I didn't even know which character, but
Because
I
she met
knew
him
it.
first, and he was the one that she
Right.
bonded with the longest.
Scarecrow, yeah. And then, of course, Claire thought when he says the matter of the payment, she's like, wait a minute. I thought the judge.
I know, that's the
I
crazy-
thought this
I
was
know.
the payment. What are we doing now?
I love that too. Like, but
Yeah.
I thought so. This is not over.
And we also had a whole section where he puts rose oil on his hands and he prepares her, and there was a whole lead up to it.
Yeah.
But we cut it and we kind of went straight for the act,
Yeah.
the deed. I love the thought of England line. I couldn't
know.
resist that. But we did have many discussions about exactly how many thrusts
How many
there
thrusts,
should
yeah.
be.
This is
because-
television, boys and girls, because you actually have discussions where you're counting thrusts.
Yeah. Well, we didn't want. He's not really doing this for pleasure, really.
No.
Even though the chapter is His Majesty's pleasure, he's doing it to sort of mark his territory and
Yeah.
say, "I claim this from you. This is my payment."
Yep.
And so it's not really about lovemaking or even sex. It's just about domination there. And he takes her, and it's over, and he gets dressed, and she fixes herself up there, and I love this scene.
I know, it's a really nice moment.
And the best thing coming up is that she takes the orange when she leaves.
Oh, right.
And she improvised that.
Did she?
She just grabbed the orange off the table and stalks out with it. And I thought,
Yeah, that's nice.
that's Claire leaving with at least part of her dignity intact.
And he's like, okay, you can go now.
Oh yeah, he just does the hand motions. I love his little. Lionel had he had the king down, the hands.
Yeah, I'm sorry to see the king go. This is the king's last
Jeez,
scene.
it's almost worth going back to
I
France.
know. And then they go back for a wacky adventure.
Yeah, there she goes with her
See ya.
orange. Little souvenir. This is the walk of shame. I had wanted her to walk. I wrote it originally that she walks through the streets of Paris. She walks all the way home with the walk of shame, but we couldn't afford to do it through the whole streets of Prague, so she walks through the library.
Yeah.
But it's enough.
It sells
You
it.
get it. Yeah. She's lost a piece of her soul here. It cost her something.
Yeah,
it really cost her something.
She really paid a price.
The next scene is actually some genius editing of yours, yours and Mikey O'Halloran, who does a great job. There was a much more on the head of this, but you had the idea to really not see Jamie's face till
much
later
later.
much later in the scene.
We haven't seen him in the whole episode, and you're so firmly in Claire's point of view. I didn't want to embrace Jamie too quickly. I wanted to still be with her, and at first he's a figure, and we can't see his face. She can see his face, but I wanted the audience to be emotionally distant from him, be with Claire, and kind of feel like, yeah, Jamie, fuck you. Thanks for making all this happen,
Right.
And just not being willing to embrace him, and then choosing a moment once
Yeah.
they move into the parlor when we finally reveal, then
Yeah.
you see Jamie.
And the most heartbreaking line is, I don't even know if it was a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
And this edit enabled us to start on that, which I thought worked great. I didn't miss any of the dialogue that we cut. It's rare for me to say that.
Yeah.
We actually cut a lot of the dialogue out of this
We
scene.
did. There was a
Yeah.
great scene. It was great. It was a really well written scene. It wasn't.
Well-
it was all great dialogue, but there was a power to the silence
Yeah.
between these two characters. And the more you played this and just
Oh,
looks,
yeah.
and letting the actors just carry it in their behavior, it
Yeah.
really got stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I think in the first draft it was even more of a fight where they go from room to room and follow each other and argue and blame each
Yeah.
other. And then I just threw it all out and started over because really it is more powerful. The silence, the sadness and grief and power of it is just this grief-stricken couple. And here's where now we're going to go back and see why Claire was so angry and couldn't forgive him, because we didn't see everything she went through. We cut away before we saw what she really went through, which was holding her dead baby. And then we understand maybe all the people who love Jamie so much and are mad at Claire for being mad at him now will understand why she could have hated him so much.
What's also great, just dramatically in the show as a piece of filmed entertainment, now the audience, it's been quite a while since the audience sat there with Claire losing the baby
Right.
emotionally. Yeah, she can talk about it and remind us, oh, that's right, I remember how upset she was.
Yeah.
But flashing back and not just repeating the scenes that we'd already seen, but flashing
Right.
back and showing an even more dramatic section of
Right.
it and a more powerful one, again, pulls the audience back into that emotion at this point in the
Right.
story, so you really experience the heartbreak of it.
Because for her, it is right
It's
there
present.
on the
It's
surface.
very
It's
present.
not something that she's forgotten. It's right there. And it'll be there for years. It'll be there always.
And I remember
And-
in the first cut, we played around with whether you could hear her or not in the flashback, whether you heard her calling
Yeah.
out for the baby or not.
We'd
And-
already seen it, so it's better. It's more powerful
Yeah.
silent. Yeah. And whenever you're that mad at someone, it's usually because there's something inside you. You're mad at yourself about something, and you haven't copped to it yet. That something in it, you played a role in it. And that's what I was trying to go for with Claire, is that she's so angry. It's like a wounded animal that just bites and lashes out at whatever comes near them. When you see that she had to hold this baby, her and Jamie's baby,
Her head in the palm of my hand.
and Kat is just...
Oh, she's
I just-
fantastic.
This,
Stuck out just a little.
we wanted to see just her face telling this story.
See the light through the light through the skin as well.
And he's great. Look,
Ah,
he has
he's-
he has a tough role here because he just has to react. It's her story, and he has to react. But he's really holding your feeling in every
Yeah.
cutaway shot.
Because he's in as much pain as she is. He
Yeah.
lost a child too, and he's blaming himself. And I just love the idea that I even when I read the book, and then the book there's many more chapters that we had to condense this. We couldn't go on horse rides and do the nettles and do some of the things that I loved in the book, but we had only an hour. And I thought the thing I took away from the book was her realization. I wanted to expand on that more because they didn't quite delve into that as much. But this was partly her fault. She shouldn't have asked him this. She asked him an impossible thing, to not kill the man that had raped him and wrecked his life. And then she went to the duel to stop it. She put their baby in danger. It's partly on her, and I wanted her to realize that they share the blame for this, and that's really the only way that they can forgive each other and move on. And this is my favorite scene.
Oh, I know. I love this scene. This is so great.
I wanted it to be Louise that comes and has to take the baby from her.
The pregnant
The only
Louise.
one, the pregnant Louise. And that Claire, I mean, we've played Louise so flighty, so gossipy and shallow, but here she does a good turn for someone who helped her in her time of need. And here we see the real, the steel character of Louise, and Claire realizing that there's life in that inside Louise there that is not what she's holding in her arms, and but Claire's she's like a zombie. She's in this deep denial of like, look how beautiful she is. She looks like an angel. And Louise doesn't say, no, she's not. She says, yes, she is beautiful. And she knows woman to woman how to tell her play sort of into what Claire's feeling and yet be kind and firm with her all at the same time. And when she says it's time, I always knew that she would say it's time and take the baby from her, and Claire would release the baby to Louise, where she wouldn't have with any of the nuns who she had been fighting.
The line that breaks my heart is when she says there's 10 fingers and 10 toes. That's just...
It's, yeah. You wanted the baby to have little wisps of red hair, so that the audience could really feel that this is the child of the characters that we love so much. And it's such a tragedy. It's just so devastating. And I just don't even know if I can watch this. I may have to cover my eyes.
I know. I cry every time I watch this scene.
I know. Kat here, just when she hands the baby back and she just falls over. I wanted Claire singing to the baby too, because don't forget, Claire lost her own mother when she was 5, and the only memory she remembers is her mother singing to her, and really that's all she had to give that baby before she lost her forever.
Where'd
is
that
I'm going to
song
sing
come
you a
from?
song. I googled songs of the era.
Of the era?
And of
the
the era
40s?
that would have been her mother's era.
Oh, her mother's era.
And I found that song. I wanted it to be a whimsical, fun song as opposed to a sad song, because that would play against it and be even sadder.
Yeah, I love that choice. It was a great...
Yeah.
I remember when you turned this second draft in, and you were in Scotland, and I came into the writer's office.
I was terrified that you would hate the script.
I just walked up and
you didn't
kissed
say
you.
anything, and you just walked up and grabbed me, and then I was like, oh, thank God. I thought his face.
I was so moved reading it, and it was just so lovely and so deep, and I just was so proud of you, because it was...
Well, thank you.
So you just really grasped the essence of what this show was supposed to be. It was just
but it's
script.
because, I have to say, when you told me it's all about the baby, that was the essence of it, and that inspired me to dig deeper and get to this place. So
He's not here. And now neither is our daughter.
yeah, I think Jamie was not expecting her to take the blame for this at all, and this is why
Not even Randall's fault.
they can stay together, because they speak the truth to each other. She's saying we can't even blame Randall for this.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of couples that lose a child don't stay together because the grief, they can't comfort each other. They're both too grief-stricken, and it either breaks you up or makes you stronger, and we wanted to show that this is something they could survive. And I wanted, like Master Raymond, when he was saying call for Jamie, when he was healing her, he was sparking in her that spark that he knows that she loves Jamie so much, that here in my mind, and I don't know if people will get this, it's like Jamie becomes, in a way, the heron, because he says the only way we can carry this is to carry it together, because we're the only two people in the world that know the pain of losing faith. And when he says let's keep going and carry it together, he becomes that heron, and that's why they can go on as a couple. And I think this is what we love about Claire and Jamie. She says she slept with the king, and again, in my first draft, it was a much bigger deal. They fought about it, and it was, you said, who cares if she slept with the king? They lost their baby, and I love that. I took that advice and I went, you know what? This is a footnote. It's nothing.
Yeah,
It's
in
like,
the scheme of things, that's
in the
not.
big scheme of things, it's nothing. So she just kind of goes, yeah, there's this other thing. I slept with the king. And you see one little moment of Jamie's face like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, of course.
It registers.
It
It's like-
registers and it hurts him. But he's man enough to say, I'm not going to dwell on these little,
That's
frivolous, that's issues. This
Yeah,
is.
compared to losing faith,
Yeah.
that's just not the thing.
And it was funny because I had originally named the episode His Majesty's Pleasure. It was just flashier, and it was kind of more about the king part and all. And when I did the rewrite and changed it to being more about the baby, when I went to look back in the chapters, I'd actually written in the margins episode entitled Faith and put faith in quotes. I'd written that in the margins
really?
when I first read the book.
Oh, no kidding.
Meaning I wanted to write this episode, and I had named it Faith before I ever even.
Oh, wow.
But I had forgotten about it. So when you said make it about the baby, and I went back and I went, yes.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It has to be faith. And actually, I retyped it like 5 minutes before I turned it into you. I ran to the computer and changed the title of the episode
Is that
to
right?
Faith. And it just felt right. It
Yeah.
made everything fall into place.
That's
That
perfect.
it's a new script. It's about something new. And this, like I said, I knew from episode 5 when we chose the Apostle Spoons, I wanted Jamie to leave this on the grave and leave leave St. Andrew, which is leave a little bit of Scotland with his daughter who has to leave in Paris.
Yeah.
And I love what Claire's wearing. I love the veil that Terry made
It's
for
a
her.
beautiful costume.
And we have her sort of standing back because this is really Jamie's moment to grieve.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't really gotten to grieve, and he says, we'll go back to Scotland, but I have to see Faith first. And he goes there, and the two of them, I mean, this episode actually had a different ending, had several more scenes, which you will see next week, but they weren't meant for this episode. This
Yeah.
episode was meant to end here.
This is the
when
end of the story. It's really here.
Yeah, and as they pull up, I didn't ask for this, but someone snuck a statue of the Virgin Mary in this graveyard, which I thought was a great touch. I don't know if that was
Oh,
Gary
really?
or Gina or Metten, who did a wonderful job of directing, but I love this shot, and as it opens up,
Oh,
you see
yeah.
the Virgin looking down
Oh,
at them.
that is nice. That's very
I love
nice.
it. It's the most favorite thing I've ever written, and the best thing, without a doubt, in my whole career.
It's the best episode of the season. I mean, just hands
Oh,
down.
well,
It's
well,
just-
thank you.
it
We have a
really
lot
is.
of great episodes,
There's
so
still some great stuff coming up.
really great stuff coming up.
This
But this
one's special.
This one's very special, very personal to me, and will always be in our hearts.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me write this
Oh,
one.
thank you. And thank all of you for joining us. So that'll do it for episode 207, and we will talk to you next week on 208. Until then, good night and good luck.
Thank you, everybody.